Hi, Barnaby and Katie. It's so nice to meet you and see you here over Zoom and talk about this amazing album that is coming out, Infinity, that VOCES8 has just recorded. Thanks so much for taking the time to chat with me today.
Absolute
Thank you so
pleasure.
much for having us.
Thank you very much.
Mhm. VOCES8 is heard regularly here on Classic 107. It's heard all the time. The eight of you are just amazing. I want to first start out by asking you, what have you been doing? What with the whole COVID thing? I know that there is a music education aspect that's very important to VOCES8. What has the group been doing since the lockdown?
Quite a lot of things.
Ah,
The first thing we did was we had a rest because we'd just come back from a big tour of North America. We've been for a month. But yeah, it's interesting that you mention the foundation because as an ensemble, we're very community focused. We believe in the power of music to bring together communities and to all that good stuff, which we can talk about at length for sure if you'd like to. But I think our initial reaction was that we were very aware that music plays a really important role in many people's lives. And of course, in order to do that, they have to go out of their houses and find it and take part in activities. And the pandemic meant that that wouldn't be possible. So the first thing that we did was we followed our instinct and we thought, well, if they can't go out and get music, we'll take music to them. And so we set up something actually called Live from Home, where we committed every day at 2 o'clock UK time to provide some sort of musical activity online, streamed. And we didn't think that it would go on for quite as long as it did, but we did it for the entirety of the first lockdown, which was 110 days. So we had to get pretty creative ourselves. And after that, we developed that into a digital concert series called Live from London, which has just finished its 4th season,
wow.
which is a lot of work. And we also developed a digital academy to help all those people who couldn't go and sing together in the classroom to still be able to make music. And so it's life's been busy, but great.
Well, that's great. So the album Infinity comes out tomorrow. I've listened to it several times. I got sort of electronic copies from good friends. It is nothing but ethereal, beautiful goodness, as you would expect from VOCES8. When was the album recorded? Was it recorded during the pandemic? How did that recording process work? Katie, maybe we'll get you to
Yeah,
answer.
I think it was early pandemic recording. So we're lucky that we work with the same 8 singers the whole time. So we don't have other people coming in, so we can work quite closely as a bubble. And also we have a centre in London that is only the 8 of us use. So we've been lucky that we know our circle hasn't been too big, and it was a huge relief to be recording it through the pandemic. So to have this time to work with each other and have an artistic output, I think it's been really interesting.
When we record, one thing we have to watch out for, because we record in churches, not in dry studios, but of course
Right.
the churches aren't soundproofed, and our church is right in the middle of London, and so normally traffic noise is a big problem, but in this instance it was less so.
That's great. And I was looking at the composers on the album. It's a super diverse group of composers. You've got composers who are very often associated with films, such as Hilda Guðnadóttir. You've got video game composers, such as Stephen Barton. And you also have sort of alternative composers, such as Slow Meadow, also known as Matt Kidd. How did the repertoire get chosen? Who did that? And who put that together?
Well, I think a lot of the credit has to go to our wonderful executive producer, Helen at Decca. We are very committed, as we've already said, to music in the community. And so we want to, as recording artists, we sort of have 2 visions. Vision 1 is that we make repertoire discs of music that we like to sing as artists and music that we take to concerts. And vision number 2 is that we like to make music that people really want to listen to and will appreciate, and that will also broaden the audience of, in inverted commas, classical music. So we're a classical music group, and so we want to go out there and get as many people as possible listening to unaccompanied vocal music, or vocal music generally. And so with that in mind, our record label really did a lot of research into the sorts of composers that might intrigue multi-generation listeners, but also composers who are writing in a style that might translate very well into the sorts of sounds and noises that we make as a group. And so it's interesting that you talked about the sound world of the disc. I think I'd use two words. I'd say ethereal and suspended. And it's the sort of sound that I think people enjoy hearing VOCES8 make on disc, the sort of thing that the sort of CD that they can turn to in various different times of the day for various different reasons, but that they will enjoy having on. And so that's where the whole thing began.
And when I was listening to the disc, one of the things I was actually thinking about was, as I was saying earlier, we're right in the middle of the prairie, and I can just imagine being outside of the city, just staring up into the stars and listening to this amazing disc. It's phenomenal, which sort of brings me to my next question. The disc is centered around space. I guess my first question is, why space? Katie, why was that so important for the group?
It's the idea of kind of getting beyond the mundane. So really finding a space that's quite meditative, in which maybe that's for you something religious, maybe it's something that's just an escaping a way to calm yourself during what's been this really difficult past 18 months or so. And I think infinity for us and the idea of space is quite possibly a secular view on it, but you can really read into it whatever you want to. Maybe it's an infinity that you have after you finish with this life, if you're religious, or just the idea of getting away, of maybe nature being endless.
Yeah, it's great. And there is a track on the disc that makes use of sounds from the Sputnik satellite. Is that right?
There is absolutely. It's My Mind Is Still.
Yeah, I was wondering if it was My Mind Is Still. Yeah, it's because there's this sort of electroacoustic, beep. And it was
yeah, it is actually the Sputnik, and Katie and I were the ones who on the actual track had to imitate it with our voices as well. So Katie and I have grown as artists through this.
There are 6 new tracks that on the album that VOCES8 have just recorded. Did you approach the composers, or how did that process come about? And who did the arrangements for VOCES8 of these 6 new tracks?
Yeah, these were composers who we identified as being really interesting artists who we would love to collaborate with. And we're very grateful to them for saying yes. The arrangements are done by a few different people, because a number of the tracks on the album are taken, in their original form, are very successful tracks, and we've taken them and made them work for 8 voices, possibly plus an instrument or 2 here and there. And those arrangements have been done by various friends of the group, a guy called Jeff Lawson, who arranges a lot for us in this idiom, and also our arranger in residence, Jim Clements. And so a variety of people. It's quite important to us when we do these projects that these arrangements are bespoke, because taking the original tracks and converting them to voices in this way is a very difficult thing. So we work in collaboration with the arrangers to make sure it fits just right.
I have to ask, the disc, you're not always just singing major minor chords. There is some pretty beautiful crunchy moments on Infinity. It begs the question, were there any moments in the recording process where any of the members were just sort of like, how is this going to work? Like, were there any really, really difficult things to put together? Katie, can you talk to that a little bit? There's
possibly quite a lot of difficult things that you have to meet when we're doing an album like this. Because for example, the vocal style, it's we sing generally without vibrato, so there's quite a lot of working out how to use your own voice. And in terms of harmony, I think different members of the group read it in different ways. So you'll have some who naturally would want to find melodic lines, and some people who read fantastically horizontally, and trying to build those 2 areas together. So to bring in the overall structure of a piece and the long term, and then try to pick out, how do we balance this chord? What is it? How does that function with what's coming next?
And sorry, go ahead, Barnaby.
I was just going to say, it's interesting that you mentioned that the composers, a lot of them are from film and game. And in that compositional world, a lot of the time the composers are working with samples, so synth strings and synth voices. And so one of the really interesting challenges for us is working with trying to fulfill the desires and needs of composers who normally have a computer doing it for them with our actual human voices. And so so we've had to, I would say, genuinely extend our technical range as a group in order to be able to fulfill the demands of the score. And that's been a fascinating and challenging journey.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, one of the things that I was constantly questioning myself about as I was listening to it was that, because so much of the music is new, how do you go about properly like balancing the chords and voicing them? Like how are those decisions made?
A lot of it's in rehearsal. We'll be meticulous, but also we're very fortunate that we have a great production team. Adrian, our producer, works hard with us during the sessions. It's interesting how we record these discs because it's a little bit different to how we sing live. It's really just done on 2 microphones, a stereo pair, but they're brought very close to the group in order that you guys as listeners have an intimate experience. But that then requires us to sing a little bit softer than we would do if we were trying to fill a concert hall or a church. And so the production team, we then have to really trust what they're saying to us in the sessions, because we're almost out of our comfort zones the entire time because we're singing in a much softer way. But it's a really great team that we have. And and we spend, it's fair to say, a good amount of time putting it together.
Yeah. I'll wrap up the conversation this way. What's next for VOCES8? I mean, other than doing press junkets, after the disc comes out tomorrow, what's on tap next?
I think the next stuff is we're straight out on tour. We've got about a month touring Europe. So first up is Poland. So that's really exciting to be getting back on the road. But there's a huge amount that's going on. So we've also got the Digital Academy, which is ongoing with some of our education work. There's another Christmas Live from London series, which is about to start. Barney, I'm going to miss out 1,000,001 things. What else is coming up?
It's a good question. Well, I think we're back on tour in North America as well.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if the deal's done, might be coming out to Canada for a Christmas concert.
Oh, that'd be great.
As well, which would be lovely. But yeah, as Katie said, plenty of things going on. We're involved in some more very exciting recordings that, obviously I can't tell you about yet, but I'd definitely love to speak to you about in 6 months' time.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I think we're very fortunate. I was reflecting, coming back from my holiday yesterday, I was reflecting how fortunate we are that there is an essence of normality for us in the foreseeable future. Now, of course, that can all change tomorrow. But it is very nice for us to be going out on tour again and being able to meet our audience and do what we would have done pre-pandemic. And I think for that, we feel very grateful.
Mm-hmm. And so, Katie, you were saying that you're going on tour in Poland. I'm presuming you're going to be performing some of the tracks from Infinity, or what's the plan for Poland?
Yeah, I think particularly Heer Hymna Smither is one of the pieces that is going to be staying in our repertoire for a long time. It's lovely doing an album like this because you discover so many new pieces of music and things that Helen has suggested that maybe we wouldn't think of. So to be able to actually bring them on tour, it gives them a whole other level. I think we ideally say you want to be recording pieces that you've toured for 6 months and then you reach the recording studio. But with the pandemic, we've not had that chance with lots of these music. So it's all happening in reverse, and it's going to be interesting to see how they morph and how they change.
Mm. Sounds great. Katie and Barnaby, this has just been a real pleasure. Our time's up. The disc, Infinity, is unbelievably beautiful. As I was saying earlier, it's just been a real treat to chat with the both of you. Thanks so much for taking the time to chat with me today.
Thank you very much, Chris. It's been our pleasure.
Thank you.